this video clip that I'm going to play is from a watch night relaunch of the Stream and Faith brand that we did on December 31st. To give a little bit of context and a little historical context to this I want to say probably, I think it was like the first or maybe the second worship summit that I did. Paul asked me a question, and that question was about the history of streaming, like where did it start? Well, back in 2000, as it relates to the church and within the house of worship market, Streaming Faith was launched. And out of that, in my assessment of everything that I've done over the tenure of my time in the streaming industry, that was the beginning of church streaming as we know it today. In fact, the Stream and Faith brand, before there was a Facebook and a YouTube and a community-based platform that you could go to and access church content within a community where there was live chat and things like that taking place. Stream and Faith was the first to launch that in an environment online that allowed for people to connect and engage with each other in a live format, and to be able to give and do all of those things within one domain. That was 22 years ago. And here we are today, 22 years later, and we are able to do all of these additional things. But think about it. The challenge then was bandwidth. You didn't have the amount of available bandwidth to do what you can do today. There was no, real transcoding. All of those things were still being figured out. But one of the key components to the Stream and Faith brand was what was known as the Linear Playout. And it was way before its time. That would allow for the scheduling of live content or the scheduling of VOD content in a program schedule, but also give you the ability to be able to interject your live stream within it, within a schedule. So you can interrupt your program and then jump right in. But let me go to this video, and I hope you all enjoy it. It will add some context, and then we'll come back out and we'll talk about the Linear Playout.
We still have to make our way out through some more wind and through some more.
Ain't been offset chopping it up. So let's just go ahead and just keep it real. Listen, we've been having an outstanding time tonight, and we've been working through things, exploring things, overcoming things all night to make sure that this gospel is streamed to you. And how you
the metaverse? I know for the last decade or so, the kingdom has been really talking about marketplace ministry, but what is before us now is metaverse ministry, and that has been accelerated by this pandemic panorama. Panera Bread, whatever exactly. And so we're heading speed, just really quickly into what's called the fourth industrial revolution. Historically, there have been 4, arguably 5 industrial revolutions that have moved society forward, but also unfortunately have left millions behind.
That's true.
And so I think this is an amazing opportunity as the church and the kingdom look for what's next and look for the opportunities to reposition themselves for how to attract a new and future generation into their ministries. We've got to embrace virtual reality and augmented reality.
That's true.
And so we started 21 years ago with streaming. And what is so exciting, and I was talking to a colleague off camera, when you think about it, 21 years ago, not only was Streaming Faith and multicast media on the cutting edge of streaming video, but the Black church was as well.
That's true.
I was having a conversation last year with Steve Case, who Steve was the founder of AOL.
Okay.
And Steve remembered, basically, we had a partnership whereby we would get, remember the disc that you would get? You would insert the disc in the computer.
Right.
You've got mail.
You've got mail.
And every month you get a new disc to get faster internet. Steve didn't know how until we talked. He said he was wondering why churches were calling, asking for bulk CDs, and it's because they wanted to get. It was like the new. Remember the Jack Chick tracks? We used to give out This Is Your Life. Imagine giving someone an AOL and saying, "Go watch us on Streaming Faith." Right. So I had to basically help people get on the superhighway. So when history is truly told, we help a lot of people that are often overlooked, under-sourced, under-resourced, underrepresented, underestimated, underfunded, which typically means Black and brown in America, but around the world. We help to bring them onto the superhighway and onto the internet. And so I don't want to take this moment in time lightly. And so we've got a lot of things planned. We're really building an ecosystem around ministry and around church that starts. If you think about this, name a content producer that every week has the pressure of developing new content, 2 hours on Sunday, sometimes 4 hours, sometimes 6 hours, and during the week, 8 hours, and have been doing so consistently for decades at a time.
Listen.
All right. So, as I said, I would add some context with that video. So Dr. Rodney Sampson, who was speaking for the most part, is who I was referencing as the co-founder who brought the whole vision of that streaming faith model to the church. One of the interesting dynamics of that is when we think about church and we think about content, we think about Sunday morning worship services, right? But most of the time we don't think beyond that. So, but there's so much more that takes place within the church beyond the Sunday morning worship service. What takes place is discipleship training. You heard Pastor Jasper Williams talk about discipleship, what we've been called to do. And so imagine having, access to a library of discipleship training that can be put into a program guide or even scheduled content. And that's what I want to talk about, how to take the content from video on demand, right, to live or linear playout in a scheduled format. Or let's think about how you have children's programs or some of the different gifts such as plays and things that are being recorded at the church, that now you can create original content for the church. And with OTT platforms being as readily available as they are today, the church can create its own, Hulu platform or its own Netflix type platform because of all of the content that's being generated. So let's think about it. Across any platform in the world that you can think about, you won't find, at least in my opinion, you won't find any other resource that creates as much content, and I'm talking new content, than the House of Worship market, right? Every Sunday morning, there's a new message being preached somewhere around the world. If you take, let's just say there's 400,000 churches in America. Out of that 400,000 churches, every single Sunday, that's 400,000 new pieces of brand new content that's being distributed around the world, right? Now, we know that not every church is streaming and not every church has access to the equipment to stream. But what if we had churches that would partner with each other and you had smaller churches who didn't have the equipment that could go into other churches that did have the equipment and be able to record content that can then be uploaded and give access to those churches a linear playout, where now their content can be seen, it can be heard. Those ministries now have an opportunity to be streamed through a platform that will allow them to connect with people, masses of people around the world. And that's what the linear playout is all about. When we think about linear playout, it is designed so that you can schedule content, right, that people can go to and access. So now they go to Roku and they download this new channel app, and they're able to look at what's playing. But you can also include video on demand as well, so that if they want to watch a broadcast, they can watch something on demand as well as within the linear playout. But this gives the opportunity to create content in an environment where perhaps you can have commercial-free content, or if there are commercials, they're commercials that can be inserted based on the values of the broadcast and the content that's being made available. And so when we think about how we're managing our content today, people can go to the platform. It has an electronic program guide so they can see what's coming up next, just like what we're used to when we're watching cable TV, right? But now it's a platform that is completely owned and managed by the house of worship, by the church, right? So you have all of this content that can be engaged, or you want to create a subscription platform where people can subscribe to get that content as well. And so you can do that now. You can have content that is not only pay-per-view or subscription based on video on demand, but somebody can have a subscription to multiple different church content that can be streamed across a linear playout. And so you can schedule your content through a program guide, and you upload it to our platform, and you begin to put your content into a schedule. So somebody now at the church, whether volunteer or paid staff, can take the content from a library, begin to put specific areas of programming around specific topics that will help people around the world to get content that's designed specifically to minister to them. And as you create these channels, you can create channels by topic. So it could be stuff that deals with, different things, whether it's, addiction, or whether it's, prophecy, whether it's marriage, whether it's finances, and you can gather this content and put it on this platform and allow people to connect and get ministered to that way. So what an effective means of being able to use the content of the church to reach people. And when we think about just how effective that is, and we encourage others to provide content for the networks, then we begin to work together within the body of Christ, unified with a purpose of creating content. Now we become intentional. We start thinking outside of the box. We're thinking about how to create content beyond Sunday morning. We're collaborating, which is exactly what we're doing now, right? This is a collaboration of minds that have come together to share ideas and to say, hey, this is how we can take it to the next level. This is what we're doing at our church. This is how our church is creating content on a regular basis. And these are the tools that we're using. Well, today I'm presenting an additional tool that will allow the church to create content, to collaborate, and to bring more fresh content to the world. So as we think about this process of our creative ability, let's start thinking beyond just the preaching ministry. Let's think about the teaching ministry and how to put this content within these platforms that are available, right? I ask myself all the time, how many churches have, Roku channels or Amazon channels or Apple TV channels? We develop channels for multiple organizations. Why not the church? Why shouldn't, every church who has access to the creative process be able to do it? One of the things that I've learned during this season of COVID, and part of that is because I've been involved with helping churches to build studios inside the church, some, home studios. It became an opportunity for pastors and leaders and ministers to be able to step outside the box, think a little differently about how church is being done, and create content that was a little bit more streamlined and more specific to reach people right at their need. So now if we begin to think like that as we continue on, not so much just getting past COVID, but thinking beyond where we are right now and being able to implement these same tools and the same process of creating content within our regular workflow. So we already have the ability. Now all we have to do is carve out the time to do production specifically geared towards meeting the needs of the community in which we serve. And I think that doing that and being able to offer a scheduled broadcast helps to build on top of what most people are used to. So we know that people watch, content on, television, and they record content to go back and watch it later. We know that video on demand has a very high volume of usage. We have platforms that's geared towards, video. We search for, things that we want to know more about, areas of interest. And so as we create these platforms of linear playouts, that gives an opportunity for people to be able to engage on that level. And so those are, to me, the reasons why we think beyond just video on demand. Now we get into formatting video a specific way. We can tie people back to a process of engagement, and we can build communities around that linear playout as well, where people can have, opportunities to know that a specific broadcast is coming on, take time to watch it together, create dialogue sessions within it. There's some really cool features that we're rolling out as we look at the community process of online engagement. One of those is going to be to have watch parties around content where there can be dialogue taking place at the same time and sharing notes with each other, so that, people are engaged and they're learning at the same time. They're getting something that really ministers to them. And that's what the technology really is all about, if we're leveraging it the right way, right? We do know that, people tend to watch longer when they're watching with somebody else, right? When they're engaged with somebody else and outside of a platform that may create, distractions, right? So we want to offer an environment that's as free from distraction as possible, but still giving the ability to be online and be engaged and to have a community impact with the content that's being broadcast. So there's hundreds of thousands of hours of content being created a week, right? We just said that because there's churches that are streaming all over the world, or churches that are recording content all over the world, only to be replayed at a later time. So this gives us another avenue, if we really think about it, of how to be effective with the content that we have. And so, again, my name is Michael Upshaw. I enjoy doing things like this because of the access that we have with the technology that we have and the tools that we have and the teams that we have to come together and to do this, so that at the end of the day, the gospel can be broadcast around the world. So whether you're live, whether you're on demand, whether you're putting together a schedule, the main thing is the people in front of the content, right? We want to make sure that the content itself is rich and it's reaching, it's touching, it's impacting, it's changing. We should hear the testimonies of those that are being impacted by the content that's being created or generated and produced on a weekly, daily, monthly, and annual basis. And so we think through that process. One of the things that I thought was important, and I've shared this with Rodney Sampson, God gave him a vision years ago. And through that vision, we see the level of churches that are engaging around the world. And we see people online because somebody stepped out at a time when it probably wasn't the easiest to be able to do a live broadcast, to do a live stream. There was no HD, 1080p, 4K, cameras. All that stuff wasn't available at that time. But then we were dealing with DSL and dial-up, right? At best, so you hear on the video, he talks about having the AOL connection and being able to upload, update your AOL so that you can connect, at a rate that was, feasible, right? But at the same time, you know, there was not a lot of progressive download. So if you got buffering and different things like that, you didn't have all of the available resources, but it had to start somewhere. And so to have a vision, to start somewhere and to go out and to be able to accomplish it and to see the impact that has occurred around the world today with what we're able to do with this type of technology, I'm telling you, we have to consider now is the time to start scheduling content in a linear playout and doing something else. Where live streaming has taken us, I believe the linear playout will take us even further.